Namaskar to all of you. I'm very happy to have many friends from AWC across the country joining this meeting. We are having this talk in connection with Water Day, which is actually tomorrow, but then we are having this talk today. I'm very happy to introduce our guest, Ms. Kalpana Ramesh. She is an environmentalist advocating water conservation and restoration. She is a designer and architect by training, and she's a designer. She took up rainwater harvesting projects across Hyderabad, where she is based, and she has also been involved in a lot of very interesting activities. One is documenting the traditional step wells in the area, which was a big project taken up by an organization, and she was one of the main persons working on it. And she took up restoration of a lake in Hyderabad. And I remember I met her a few years back, and I've been following her work. I remember her telling me how she started almost single-handedly working on cleaning the lake, and how she talked to the people staying around there and got the communities involved. And of course, that went on to become one of the most successful projects. Her work has been recognized. She has won several awards. And the latest recognition, I would say, was that she was one of the 7 women honored on Women's Day to take over Prime Minister's social media handle for a cause. I hope, Kalpana, you will tell us a little more about this, because everyone would be interested in knowing that. So a very warm welcome to you, Kalpana. We look forward to hearing about your experiences, and also I hope you would tell all of us how each of us can contribute in water conservation and rainwater harvesting and all other actions that you have been advocating. So over to you, Kalpana.
Thank you so much, Usha, and thank you for the opportunity. And so nice to see so many of you in a.
Kalpana, you are muted. Please unmute yourself.
I didn't realize. Actually, I was not muted. Okay, sorry about that. So, thank you so much, Usha, for that introduction. And I'm so happy to see so many women here on a Sunday afternoon, actively wanting to listen to what I'm doing for water. It's wonderful to meet you all. And to begin with, I would like to say that I was not a born water warrior, or I didn't think like this. Maybe 20 years before, I didn't honestly think like this. But today, it's my passion. It's become like a junoon for me. Like every day, I have to do something towards it. But how did this journey really begin? Right? I want to share that. I think that you will be able to relate to, and you'll be able to understand how one person can be the change. We often think we are just one person, and we see so many problems around us, and we don't know where to begin. What is the roadmap? How will we achieve it? But I just want to share my story, that how it all started. So I'll just share my screen. Just give me a moment, please. Yes. So so the previous slide simply says that we are actually traveling the last mile for water, because the future literally lies in how we have managed our resources. It could be any resource, but here I'm talking water. How we've managed it, how we've understood it, and how are we going to hand it to the next generations is so pertinent today. So I call it the last mile for water, because right from the UN to everyone says the impact what we'll be making in the next 10 years decides what's going to happen beyond for water. So here's my journey. So the first slide here, I'm a very passionate designer, and I love nature, anything nature around. So any of my design stories or design that I have done for residences or any structures. My aim is to make it nature inclusive. So I started off with my home because we started building this home, but how did we become sustainable? There's a little background to that. When we moved back from US in 2000, I'm actually born, brought up and studied in Bangalore, but we had to settle in Hyderabad because of my husband's job. So when we came to Hyderabad in 2000, we lived in different communities, and pretty much wherever we live, only thing I noticed was we are dependent on tankers for more than 6 months a year. So it used to make me think, why are we doing this and why can't we think ahead of a tap and a tanker? We are not thinking beyond. So we tried, my husband is also into a lot of green things. So we tried becoming part of committees to get this conversation going with the community, where we can make it, we can think about rainwater harvesting, we can think about various other conservation methods. So people were ready to hear and listen, and they agreed to most, but somehow it didn't seem priority. Like, every time it goes back to saying, maybe next year, we'll take it up in 6 months or next year. But it didn't, it was never priority. So that used to really bother us. So we were able to achieve a few things in 4 different communities that we live. Now, finally, we decided when we do our own house, we have to make this tanker free. So my whole journey started out of a need to become a tanker free home. So when we built this home, you can see the courtyard of the house. The entire base of the courtyard, the basement of this courtyard is actually a rainwater harvesting sump. It's a large 30,000 liters sump, and all of the rainwater, simply it is nothing technical about it. We just had this space and we wanted to collect all of our rooftop rainwater. Now we had to filter it a certain way. So there is a kind of jali which is there in the terrace, and also before it enters the sump, we realized that we need to do a coal and sand filter, a very simple, shallow, 2.5 feet deep, 6 by 4, coal and sand filter. So the water would go into that filter and fall into the sump. The sump had only one opening. You see the tulsi plant there. The sump opening is under the tulsi plant, and the rest of it is completely covered. So there's zero sunlight going into it. So we realized that it worked as a water bank for us, and we started, not buying tankers. But in the first year, I don't know if you're going to be tanker free or not. We also did something called gray water recycling. Gray water is nothing but it is wastewater. What comes out of the commode is black water. The rest of the water that we use is gray water, which is from the showers, your sinks. All of this is gray water. Even the RO wastewater also, had these pipelines done separately so that we could take this gray water with simple recycling techniques. There was a company in Pune 10 years ago we contacted. Now I think every city has people that do, packaged STPs and gray recycling. It was quite simple to install. It didn't take much space. And I was able to feed all my plants, and I still grow vegetables for our family. And we try maximum to grow and eat. So in our little space on the terrace and outside our home, all of the greenery, we started taking care with the gray recycling. And the rainwater, whenever it rains throughout the year, we about 62, 63 days of rainfall, we reuse this. And also it serves as a water bank whenever we need water. So we started even drinking the rainwater. Just a normal UV filter is required. You don't need any other filter. You don't need an RO at all. And because you pass it through lime and, we pass it through coal and sand, it gets a little bit of minerals, but also the sump we did a lime wash. That also helps getting it some lime with the water. So you can infuse with whatever minerals that you want. You can infuse rainwater because it's not very mineral rich, but it is the purest form of water that you can get. So I have tested the tanker water quality. I have tested the municipal water that we get, and this seems to be the best of quality so far Year after year, we test this quality. So once this happened, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 4 years, and I saw that we didn't need a tanker at all. And in fact, our consumption of the municipal water that came to us also reduced in a big way. So this was a big learning for me. See, anything I want to experiment, whether it is design or what, first I want to experiment and understand for myself that this is possible before I start talking it to others. So exactly that's what happened with this project. So I used to run a design studio. I still run a design studio. So who were clients that I had, started talking about rainwater harvesting to them. We started, doing rainwater harvesting in several sites of my own clients and through different networks. At that time, we started even innovating because we had a design studio. How do we innovate for spaces which are very challenging, and how we can do rainwater harvesting in apartments and spaces where you don't have any land available, but where do you store water? So you can do under car parks, how you can filter that water with filters, and also brought in this new innovation in rainwater harvesting, which is modular rainwater harvesting. There is no sand, no gravel method, and you use these modules to collect rainwater. And you see that blue pipe in the picture, that's actually a recharge borewell, a borewell which is used only for recharge. And you don't need to, there's no recurring cost on removing the stone, redoing and stuff. So we started, because I soon started realizing there is no innovation in rainwater harvesting and we have to rethink the system. So while doing these, I also realized that lakes are our largest catchment for water. Why did I start thinking about lakes? Because I went to one of the TEDx Salon events, which is a one-day social impacting issue we discussed, and water was one of the topics. So when I wanted to, I wanted to go because water was being discussed, and I went there. Till then, I know only my, house, and of course, we worked on our community, and we did several rainwater harvesting pits. So I can say that in our house, 10 years, we haven't got a single tanker. And the last 5.5 to 6 years, our community has also not got a single common tanker. So for a few years, I only understood these two things. But when I went to that talk, that's when I touched upon what is the city really going through for water, and what we need to do, and what is actually happening. How is water being distributed? Where are we getting this water from? Suddenly it dawned upon me that we are actually importing water. The municipal water is being imported to the city. It comes from 200 kilometers away. Now, then I realized, is it only Hyderabad? No, it is pretty much the story of every other city. Now, these are water that is coming from rivers. That one way we are saying that rivers are dying, and we are extracting river water to cities, and our population is constantly on the increase. Like in the next 25, 30 years, our population is going to double. So as a city, we are managing with this municipal water, which we get from rivers, and groundwater. Now, groundwater, I realized through several, talks, researchers, talking to several people in the water board that almost 80% of our groundwater is over extracted. It's being over mined because more population, you keep drawing water, and if this doesn't work, put another bore, you're just erasing streams and going. These two are our resources, and this is how we are managing it. Now, are we putting back, water into the ground to recharge this groundwater, which we are really over extracting? No, nobody is doing anything about it. And okay, are we working on our wells? Are we working on our water bodies, lakes? Are we, restoring them so that they could help recharge a whole lot of rainwater? We are not doing that. And I also understood it like a story how not just Hyderabad, every city has started from 0 kilometers to 30 kilometers. Now Hyderabad, we went 70 kilometers. Then we went 120 kilometers to Nagarjuna Sagar. Then we went through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Then we went to the Godavari and Krishna, which is 200 kilometers. So municipal water also, we have traveled over the years and, going on building these huge infrastructures to get water for you, because it has to come through gravity. You have to, build these pumping stations because there's a huge elevation difference as well. So why so many costs go into that, and O&M costs, and of course, Maybe for us, crores sound huge, but that is not so for the state or the city. But still, it is a huge expenditure. And as a city, we are spending crores and crores on tankers. So we are not saving groundwater, we are not saving any water bodies or water structures. We are putting crores of money on tankers and we are erasing rivers. So this is what in essence I understood that what is going on with the city and why it is pertinent to do what I have done in my own home and in the community. So I was confident of this. So I thought working with communities is good. But when I went to the lakes, it is a completely different story. And lake, what I did I didn't know anybody around this lake. It's close to my house, but I don't live in this community. I didn't know anybody. Now, how to talk to people? This is the first time I was in touch with how do I communicate with the people in the outside world. I love people and I have a large network, but I don't know about the community reach. How do I outreach? So while I was thinking, should I do a walk? Should I do a run? But I didn't believe in that because it's a one-day engagement and people forget about it. So I said, no, there has to be a personal, you need to go and talk to people. So almost all my evenings, weekends, I spent going, meeting people and telling them, look, I'm interested in working on this lake. Now, at that point, I don't even have a plan what I'm going to do with the lake. I only know that it's a polluted sewage pool of a lake and it is leaching into your bore wells and 60% of that water is what you drink today. So you need to, pay attention to your environment to see that, how do we better up this situation. So in that process, I had like almost 42 different meetings with different communities and in their apartments, in parks, in events they had. I used to go and speak, talking to children, creating little activities, asking the children to write something about the lake and what do you think about a polluted lake and such. After doing all of this, I thought at least there will be people that come to help me for cleanups. So what the pictures that you're seeing is literally the first few pictures of the lake that I picked up. Many of my friends laughed. They said, like, you are one person. Look at the condition of the lake. Do you even know? Do you have a clue what you have taken up on yourself? Now, I was like, I will figure it out. Just like there is an intent, right? There's a very strong intent that I want to make this happen for this lake. It doesn't matter what the problem is, I'll figure it out. This was my thing right from day one that I will figure it out. Now I don't know what it is, but I know I will figure it out. So then after talking to communities and that, I thought the first thing to do is do cleanups and build communities around the lake. Because if the communities around the lake are active, this lake at some point or the other will come back alive. If communities don't care about the lake, even if I go and make this lake happen, if they don't handhold it, it's not going to work. So I started working backwards, building communities. So through meetings and stuff, then I was ready for the first few cleanups. So coming the first few cleanup, what happened? Hardly now. I thought at least I've talked to some 350, 400 people. At least I thought some 30 people will come to the lake for the first cleanup. So I was very into as a true designer. I made new different rakes and I did all kinds of things and I was ready for this cleanup. But what happened was nobody came to the cleanup. So disappointed. I said, like, first of all, that day I realized, first of all, a woman trying to do something, okay, what is she trying to do? How is she trying to do? And who is she to ask us to come and clean up the lake? There are so many things running in my mind. I mean, what is it that, I have outreached and I have personally outreached, and why would this be? Why are the communities quiet? Why do they don't want to? Because almost everyone complained that, look, it's a government's job. It is not our job. We cannot do this. The government has to do. I had to talk so much to them telling, we are a huge population. Government can do only so much. If we handhold, we can get them to do larger things for the lake. So first cleanup was disappointing, but still I didn't give up. My supervisor said, let's go home. Ma'am, let's pack up and go. I said, no. We came, we decided, nobody asked us to clean this lake. We decided we will do the cleanup. So both of us started doing the cleanup. We called the GHMC, the municipal guys. We told them, and after seeing us, few people came out of the apartment. They joined us. So it was a slow momentum, but people were getting into the game. And I did very interesting cleanups. Like you see a kayak there, we did kayaking and cleanup. Where in the kayak, I had friends who know kayaking. So they would take the boat to the middle of the lake and then move the garbage towards the end, and people would pick that. And so we did some interesting cleanups, which caught some attention with people, because cleanup is not a happy thing to do. You have to get into the game and do. I got a lot of children, school children, who would not want to touch anything, but once they see that okay, they can do. What I did is, for children who didn't want to touch and feel and all that, I called all the sanitation workers. I made them speak in their own languages of what is their day like, how do they clean up and how do they feel about these things. These children, I tell you, they most of them had a tear in their eye, and they didn't bat an eyelid. They just went and picked the rakes, and they didn't care for anything. After 2 hours, I had to pull the kids out. So they got into the game like that, because often we keep our children very cushioned and we don't tell them what is the reality. But when they know the reality, believe me, children are the only beings in this world who think solutions. They don't talk problems. If we know a problem, we'll harp on it, we will dissect it, we will go to the bottom of it and analyze it. Children always find solutions. If you tell them a problem, they're only saying, okay, what do we do to solve this? So that is something, these are things I learned. And also, slowly I started learning that the lake, the water belongs to irrigation, the urban planning and revenue department holds the land, around the lake, and then all the inlets, outlets belongs to the water board. So I quickly learned that there are different owners for the lake, and I have to connect all these ownerships, align them, which is the toughest job. How do I do this? I mean, every time I can't go to each department and say I want to do this, I'm doing this. So what I did, I went to the higher up, who is the principal secretary of municipal administration. Luckily, I happened to know him earlier because I have done his government bungalow. I've designed his library and such. I had a certain connect with him, but it has been years, so I didn't know if he'll remember him. Luckily, he did. So I had this connect and I said, like, I'm working on this lake. Can you align all these departments to, because there are sewage lines that are overflowing for 2 years and nobody cares. Nobody didn't do anything. Some people who complain, they complain. They just do some cosmetic thing, these municipal guys, and then they leave. Again, it comes back. So the reason for overflowing was the manholes being silted. And where are the manholes? Underneath the road. You have to find these manholes. So I went by several departments finding maps for these manholes. I couldn't find. Nobody had. The one department says it's with the other says it's with another. So as a designer and architect, I know manhole to manhole is center distance is always equal. So for my luck, there was a curve also. So we had to like a puzzle finding where it is, for which I had to get road cutting permission. I had to get municipal permission, also the water board. So because I had the higher up connect, I was able to connect to all three departments. And once we found these manholes, we raised these manholes above the road and then desilted them, and instantly few manholes, erased. Like this, I have opened manholes, almost 60, 70 manholes around the lake. Why? Simply to understand where is all the sewage coming into the lake. Because the sewage is a problem, but where are the inlets? How many are there? Nobody has a clue. So each apartment or large communities which had direct sewage into the lake, slowly with awareness, you can see the pictures on the left-hand side, I got them to remove the sewage out of the lake and put it into the legal lines. So this was a good positive thing that happened, that I saw this change where people would not spend a rupee these days for anything, forget about environment, if not even for people. But today they're spending few lakhs getting permissions, and I kind of enabled him to make it faster, easier, because they also complained, builder did it, he should do it. So then we went to the builder, spoke to them. So there was a long conversation going, but I said the builder is out of the game. You people are in a hazard zone. So you want to reduce the pollution, you have to take action. So I got them to remove this. I got few an encroachment, a 20-year-old encroachment, which was a tea shop. Out of awareness, they removed that tea shop because they realized they were not able to, keep the lake clean with that tea shop happening right on the bund. So much of plastics, we made it plastic free. We tried not to plug their livelihoods, right? So we tried to work with them several ways. Finally, they gave up and they said the two kids who were working, the mother used to manage the shop and the two kids were going to evening college. So once they graduated, they said, ma'am, we will pick up another, business. We don't want to continue this, and it looks like more trouble to you and the lake rather than, any help to you. So it was such a nice thing. No force used, only with awareness. They were able to remove that, 20-year-old encroachment. And while we were doing so much, and the moment you saw clear water, birds started coming back to the lake. So nature started responding. That is something, such a huge win that is. I mean, it doesn't matter whether people appreciated or people didn't appreciate, but nature responding was such a big win for me because I could see that it is happening, right? I could see the biodiversity improving around the lake, and that was such a big win for the lake also and for the whole effort what's happening here. So all these were little encouragements that was happening. But while doing all this, a new sewage line also came into the lake. A new builder who was building, he found it easier to put it into the lake rather than take it 100 feet on the other side and put it in legal drains. Now that was connected to a politician. No matter how many times I went to the department or took to the department guys there, they said they were not able to help me. So what I did, like a designer, always I start thinking out of the box. I said, what is the solution? I don't want to sit with a politician and negotiate who's already supporting something wrong. Now the builder is determined to do something wrong, so he's anyway put the sewage line. Now the government is not a big help. So what do? We found out that building is being used for getting ready for OYO rooms. So what I did, I wrote an email to OYO head Ritesh Agarwal in Delhi. I told them, see, if you're a responsible startup, I'm doing so much of work for this lake. Really protect the lake and don't add another sewage line in this lake. So he immediately responded. He connected me to the Telangana OYO head, and we were able to remove that line in 3 days and remove it out of the lake permanently. So right now there's a beautiful social fence. No one dares to put another sewage line into the lake. Of course, the storm line that comes to the lake is a hybrid line, which brings a lot of sewage also. So we started, curtailing plastics. We did a, custom made stainless steel drain screen to stop all the plastics. Because what's the point? You let plastics in and then you do these cleanups. Instead, we stop it at the inlet itself and then we created bypass channels. And this year with the flood, the inlets or the walls also fell off. No department came to do anything. We gathered money and we as an NGO, we went and, put those walls back. So there's a constant vigil on the lake, what's happening, how to do. And for these, the sewage treatment also, there's no place around. They cannot be an STP, and nobody wants an STP because simply they will make it under capacity and it becomes the community's problem to take care of it. So I started doing some vetiver beds, floating beds, and also started doing this solar powered aeration system for the lake, which is under bubble, and it gives bubbles under the water and aerates under the water. So it is solar powered, so you don't need any thing. That started improving the quality, and now we are doing a Ayurvedic treatment for the lake. There's bio extracts which we add to the lake with 10,000 liters of water to improve the quality. So constantly working towards improving the quality of the lake, and it needs recurring help, recurring fund, recurring research. It's a dynamic game, but it was a game changer, and people knew that this can happen from the dirtiest lake that you have seen. You're seeing this lake, but whatever I was doing till then is like a piecemeal job. I was doing rainwater harvesting here and there. Then I was working on this lake. I was building communities around 5 different lakes around that time. So it's everything is like a piecemeal. I mean, I don't have a city-wide approach. And Niti Aayog Shriport, if you see, we are one of the 21 cities going to run out of water. And we are, having to beat urban floods. And this time floods, I don't have to describe, was the worst. And you have so much of, no segregated waste. There's people dumping right into the lakes. So the crisis is much, much bigger. So what is it that I can do? Around the time when that lake restoration happened is when I met Usha in another, Triple Academy is a small 30 woman cohort. We met around that time. But from the time I met Usha to where I am today is also a huge transformation. So thinking through these problems, what is the citywide approach? So this is what I understood about the city. Urbanization right now in 2020. And if you look at 2050, where we are heading, so we are looking at some 40-50% rise in urbanization and also our population. I mean, our water is already extracted, over extracted, I said about 75 to 80%, and this is what is going on. Niti Aayog says we are one of the cities running out of groundwater, but there's no action in place. We took up a small area and we did a case study. So there is, this is like the central business district in Hyderabad. It's called Madhapur. I don't know if many of you here are familiar with the city. So we did a case study where almost all the rooftops here, you see those red marks are all rooftops. This is a very, very highly dense area. And with this kind of population, the number of rooftops that is there is enough, to give rainwater, which can be collected, stored, and used for the whole year for this entire population. But just this area spends more than 200 crores in just 4 or 5 months in a year. So isn't it funny? I mean, you can provide water, you have enough rooftops to provide water for the entire year, for how many ever people are here, but then we are spending 20 plus crores. So what I thought my citywide approach will be to break the city into smaller blocks, and then start focusing on block by block and create an impact in the block, and then we can replicate this. So this model I adopted from, there's a super block model in Barcelona, which they used for solving their traffic problems. That is, in Barcelona, they have several blocks, right? Each block, they made the peripheral zone as motorable, and inside the block is all pedestrianized. So that's how they started solving the traffic problem. Now, once it was successful in one block, they started taking it to several blocks across the city. I wanted to apply the same model here with water. So if we take a block, there are lakes, there are streams, there are ponds, there are wells. Ours is a heritage city, so we have heritage step wells too. And we have parks and we have common areas where you can do rainwater harvesting. What if we improve the groundwater of this entire zone? Then we can replicate this success story in several zones. That was the thought with which we divided Hyderabad into 98 blocks. How did we divide? We went to experts who are watershed analysts who broke this down into micro watersheds. That means each block has an upstream, downstream, has a collection of streams, connected aquifers, and whatever efforts you put will benefit that whole micro watershed. So slowly started now block, we identified the block, the one that I was anyway working with the lake on. So started working with different communities now, the slums, started working with schools, started working with communities, localites, because I wanted to create a local action for water. And if you talk to people, okay, you do rainwater harvesting because the city is going through this, they might not address it. But if I tell them in a block, this is the water available to you, we have maps, we show them that this is what was available and this is what it is today. And you don't want to go towards desertification. So you need to take an action. So you may be a temple, you may be a church, you may be a corporate, a hotel, a mall, a large institution, you can be anybody. If you have land to recharge, you have rooftops to recharge, you just recharge water and improve your groundwater so that it can work for you. So the dependability on this water that comes from 200 kilometers away from rivers is lesser, and you don't buy tankers. That means you're becoming sustainable. So these are areas which we mapped. This was our first block. We went to 6 different colonies and started doing rainwater harvesting in their colonies. How did I do it? I pitched for a fund, which a grant which HDFC was saying they will give a grant to a social impact work. So I applied for this grant. Now I don't know whether I will get it or not. But I went through a couple of rounds, and the final round was in Bangalore. I flew there to Bangalore, presented, and to my luck, I won the grant. And when I came back, I had already a plan in place. So quickly, I started executing the plan. So I got 20 lakhs, and with GST and all, whatever was available to me, I could make about 20 injection bore wells. That is, bore well with rainwater harvesting pits. But I made it into 40. How? I went to communities. I said, I will give you 2 or 3. You make another 2. And we make a plan where your whole community will become groundwater rich. And you have to take care of all the 5 injection bores that we made. And that was an agreeable plan because you're giving something for free. People also resonated. Then they understood and they made it. And believe me, this year, all these communities have come back and told us that our water has improved. What used to dry up, most of the bores used to dry up in November. The bores are working beautifully. And many bores, dead bores have come back alive. A complete dead bore in this Doan's colony, what you see, is giving 2.5 lakh liters also in a day in one bore, which is like unbelievable for them also. So in Hyderabad, another problem we have is rocky strata, which is why we need to go deep down to bore wells and go to the aquifer and recharge it. We can't do just pits. So there are different strata, and we have to understand the strata of each city and work solutions around it. So this first block was a 10-kilometer stretch, and we were able to cover about 4 square kilometers. These are all common area work that we have done. And this is our first block, and look at all what the improvements that we have done around this block. While we did this, we also realized that we have done I found a large irrigation well during COVID. And distributing milk, I stepped into this and I saw this round, large structure. It looked like an irrigation well. Some people had talked about it, but we couldn't find it earlier. When I found it, I said, this is one. And everyone were busy with COVID. I took the opportunity, convinced the town planning department, said, let me revive this, restore this. And I restored it in time just before the floods. And when the floods happened, this well was able to store 1.3 million liters of water. Okay, and which otherwise would have been, flown as urban flood. So 1.3 million liters of water has nicely gone into the ground and improved groundwater of that area. Many apartments around which hardly the bores used to work are working beautifully now. So we need these collection points today because most of our lakes are encroached. There is no way for water to go. If we create these pockets, then water will nicely seep in and you don't have to see this urban disaster. Of course, this time was a freak flood. But even with normal rains, every 5-10 minutes and you see a river on the road. So these kind of collection points in common areas, and that's the drain screen you see at the bottom right. You will see that's the drain screen being installed, and also talking to children in the slum, children in schools, constantly having a conversation with them of what we did and how. So all of these works were in one block. We even made temples in this block, rainwater harvest. How did we do that? Simply went and talked to the trustees. They pulled up a couple of donors and they said, can you do rainwater harvesting in this? Simple, it was just done. It was as simple as that. It was just connecting the dots. We didn't spend anything. We didn't have to do anything, and rainwater harvesting was done. We picked up schools and we said, you pick up, outside your school, there is so much water stagnation. Can you do rainwater harvesting outside? They did it. A couple of schools did it. So that was beautiful. That was done. We picked up a government school and made it completely water positive. One small donor came up and then we had some funds. So we made that school water positive. So government schools, temples, we made a couple of parks, rainwater harvesting. We did injection bores. Now, next to the park, those apartment people came back to us and said their bores are really, one bore hardly used to work. Now it is working very well. So it is a one-time effort and we did make impact. You can see from where to where, So like while doing this work, we are not only creating water security for our cities, but reducing this garbage and the habit of littering and throwing, bringing a sense of segregating your waste. And while clearing these waste, we also have improved air quality, which used to be in 400 air quality index, which is supposed to be 50, is all above 300, 400 in these areas because of the particulate matter and because of the stench and a lot of things, right? So it has come down now to 167 around these lakes, and still it can keep coming down. And the amount of garbage that used to generate mosquitoes, diseases, all this is erased now. So you're improving the entire quality of the environment. Instead of spending lakhs in hospitals, if we all get together and start working on things around us, see, during COVID, whether we liked it or not, all of us here or everyone has contributed, right? Whether you did directly contribute or indirectly contribute. What if we apply the same logic for the environment also? Directly or indirectly, if you can't go and help, donate something for a water project. If you can, go do it. If you can go on social media and talk about it, some people are enabled to write well or talk in social media, and bring attention to these things. Because I think instead of paying money in hospitals, spend time here and get the environment better, automatically health improves. So while doing all these projects, only to plan and think and put a plan in place, we need experts, we need architects, we need watershed experts, hydrologists, geologists, but work on ground, any unskilled labor, we teach them, we tell them we need to cut out this much of area and that. Like this, we have employed for the lake and this, we have employed more than 2,000 people today, just daily labor, right? So we have supported so many livelihoods even post-COVID. We have given work to so many hundreds of people. Just through COVID also we got some work done. So this is another happy thing, right? Very unskilled labor we are able to pull up there and give them work. So these were encouraging results. We were able to create tanker-free societies, schools, temple, heritage water structures. We were able to create about 50 rainwater harvesting structures. When we started doing in common areas, we also told those communities, in your own communities, can you encourage? So many people took up and did in their own, apartments or homes. Like this, we were able to save like 20 plus crore liters, which is a lot of water, right? We haven't even completely covered the block yet, but it is a great success story. So I know Usha was talk about, how I got this recognition from Prime Minister. It was a big surprise to me. Not that I had no clue. I just few days back, they called me and said, you are nominated as one of the women, but on Women's Day morning, you will come to know if you are one of the women. You are being nominated. We just want to let you know this. You can handle the PM Modi's, tweet, his Instagram, you can handle his social media. So you just have some codes or what you want to tell people about your cause, because you can spread the message in a big way. So and I was truly happy when I was one of the women on Women's Day. They announced it last year. So I had a few things that I wanted to talk about, but that gave me a lot of connect with people in other cities as well. I know now a lot of people in Delhi, then I know a few in Mumbai, a few in Chennai, and it's a few in Bangalore. It's become a nice connect, to that. And our Blue Hyderabad is a social campaign, the kind of works that we are doing is under this Blue Hyderabad. So Blue Hyderabad was launched by the Jal Ministry themselves. So they invited me. They said they will launch this. I said, I have this initiative. They said, we will launch it. So the National Water Mission, Ashok Kumarji, so he launched it. And it was a happy moment for me. Somewhere where I'm working in one corner in Hyderabad, and I'm being recognized as a national level, and the campaign being highlighted. And also the local governments, right? They give a lot of permissions and stuff. They also kind of come around. And there are a lot of continuing projects which we are planning with the government. We keep giving proposals. Whatever comes by, comes by. Whatever doesn't come by, we still continue our work. But there's so much water from flyovers. There's additional water that otherwise what is would have been on the road is on the flyovers. But again, it creates a huge flood. So how do we do rainwater harvesting in those? Now we are doing step well restorations, and we are encouraging school. In fact, this is Gachi Bauli is an area. Gachi Bauli means Gachi is lime. Bauli is well, a well made out of lime. That's called Gachi Bauli, and that was a lost. I mean, you see that middle picture, the man standing there. You see the kind of garbage, and that is how that well was filled with garbage. And you can see on the right how it's being restored, and a local school is helping restore, because we have to, I think, start hand holding. Schools have to take up some, corporates have to take up some, and within their communities around schools, they can become water positive themselves, and they can create a water positive environment. And if schools does it, the children are also tied to the game, right? They are seeing what can be restored, how is it restored, and what is the difference it is making to the society today. This is another slum where there's a huge stagnant water, and a lot of dengue deaths happen year after year. So I keep rethinking what to do about this. So we wanted to do some such flood, retention ponds around this, and build some kind of phytoremediating or wetland beds, or have banana plantation, or bamboo plantation around this. Make it good so that the water, there is no mosquitoes. Right now, because of stagnant water, there's a lot of garbage also that gets thrown around. It becomes a toxic environment for children who live in these slums on the edges. So we thought we should, pull up. So this is a proposal which I have, there are a couple of grants I have applied for this. So whenever that comes, while doing all this, other than the design studio, I also founded the Rainwater Project, which is a social enterprise. It is a for-profit organization, but it is a social enterprise to work towards water projects. Because if you go in the city and find out who is going to dig a well for you, who will do this water thing for you, or who will do a different modular harvesting pit for you, or who will advise you how to do rainwater harvesting, because this rainwater harvesting sector is a very disorganized sector. And there are very, very challenging spaces. If you didn't do it right, you will get seepage, you will get this, that. You don't want problems, but you want the groundwater to improve. So I thought it's pertinent to have these enterprise that will give you implement solutions also, because you have to become sustainable. So half the projects that we do is in social public spaces, where we go and receive grants or get people to donate or do crowdfunding runs, things like that. The other half the projects that we do is proper commercial projects. If an institution comes and says we want to become water positive, we go visit them, we charge a consultation. If we give them the entire plan, if they want, they will implement, or we can also implement. So I started developing all these teams so we can, work together. So this also pushed me, I would say, to do, because only awareness was not getting me there, right? I do a lot of awareness. Almost 6 million people I have reached through media and various other webinars, and talking to a lot of gatherings. But what I see is people hear, people understand, but there's some inertia going back and doing it. So with a social enterprise, it becomes like this, that if you pay an initial amount for consultation to do, once you put a rupee there, you're thinking about actually doing it on ground. And I have seen this change happen. With all my awareness, I couldn't even get 2 or 3% people to change. But with a company, every consultation, we have done more than 400 consultations now. 90% of the people are actually doing rainwater harvesting. So that's been news to me. I mean, that's also been a learning to me. So we are also wanting to convert parks where it all inundates with water. Why not do rainwater harvesting in parks? And, I can take the water and the greenery will be good, the groundwater will improve. And this is one well that we did. I already spoke about this. Now here we want to do rain gardens around this well. So this is waiting for approvals. Whenever we get this, we'll go to the next step and make rainwater harvesting around this well, and silt trap. So the water from the road will go into the silt trap, and only water will reach the well. So this is my favorite, take kids and not like a monologue talking in their classrooms, but take them to lakes, take them to our traditional water systems, show them what we had, what was, how did, they think water in those days, and what have we lost today. I don't hesitate to take them to polluted lakes because they have to see what is water today. They need to understand. Believe me, after every session, there are kids. Here also, you can see some kids writing notes and stuff. They'll come back quickly and tell me, can we do this? Can we do that? That's why it's so nice to talk and, explain to them things because they're always thinking solutions. And a lot of awareness. I mean, we literally have reached more than 60,000 kids in the entire city. I mean, every opportunity that I get, I go speak to them. I've trained 50 plumbers so that they can improve their livelihoods by doing rainwater harvesting. They can go, because plumbers can tell, the regular they have in their areas, they can go and tell people, I want to keep, why don't you do rainwater harvesting in your house? They can, and they can improve their livelihoods. They'll get a little more work. So empowering plumbers is also something I have done. Yeah, so I think I am at the end of the conversation. I would like to hear from you guys if you have any questions or such. I know it was a long monologue and too many things, but I'm telling you one thing, that like Gandhiji, it's the power of one. You think that you can't do anything, but absolutely you can do so many things, starting with a small stepping stone. If I have reached a, you know, place where I'm getting national recognition for what I'm doing, that means I'm doing something right. And as women, we always think we don't understand this, we don't understand that, why do we get into this? It's not like that. Water is everybody's problem. We need to know, we need to understand. In our house, we understand, right? What is, when is the municipal water coming? How many hours we are going to get that water? Do we need a tanker, or do we need to order bottled water? We know everything about water in our home. If we stretch our wings a little bit and understand what's happening with the community, what are our resources? So many people don't understand that we even have different types of water. They're only connected to tap, and if there is no water in the tap, call for a tanker. Other than this, we don't understand. But there's rainwater, there's municipal water, there is groundwater, which we get from bores, then you have tanker water, then you have bottled water. And what are all these resources and how many liters of each we use? And all our wastewater, 80% of our wastewater can be retrieved and recycled. So this is another, wastewater is also another resource for us today. So if we understand little bit and work with our communities or work in just around our streets, today a lot of people, climate change, they hold these placards, and many kids are encouraged to hold these placards, fight and shout climate change. I don't believe in it. I tell them, give one kid a street, let them work on a street and make things happen in that street. That is true climate change. It is not slogans. We always, we are tuned to this, that it is our right to ask everything from the government. But what about our duty? When you ask for right, don't you think it is our duty? Why will the government come and save your rooftop water? And rainwater comes free to you, to your doorstep every year. What are you doing about this water? How are you managing this? These are things I think as women, like another inspiring thing I want to tell is the encroachment that we removed at the lake. The mother who used to manage, she probably earned some 250, 300 rupees in that tea shop. One day she came and asked me, how do you get money to do these works? Who supports you? I said, I put sometimes my money and I go and ask people. And again, she said, can I also help? I literally had a tear. She only earned some 250 or 300 rupees barely. She pulled out 150 rupees and gave it to me. She said, I want to donate to this lake because I have seen this lake in a very good condition and today is in a bad shape. We are doing a lot of work towards this. Please keep these 150 rupees. I still have that 150 rupees note with me. And I took a video of her talking why she is donating this. It is such a, I resonated so well with it. So as women, we are connected in several ways. We worry about our children's health. We worry about our environment. We know how to manage water. If we just join hands and come out, step out of our comfort zones, we can do a lot more for water is what this is something I really want to tell because this is a group of women and I think we need to know this. Thank you. I would take any questions from any of you guys. I would like to hear.
Thank you, Kalpana. Actually, quite overwhelming. Even though I have known you for several years now, even I am surprised by the amount of work that you have done and the things you have achieved. Of course, you have put in a lot of hard work. And then you are called to the women, saying that the women are the ones who can really take up this call because we understand so many things about water, and then we know the problems, how it is affecting the children's health and how it is affecting our food and everything. So I hope that all the women here, all the participants are women from various parts of the country, and I'm sure your call will be listened to by these women, and they will definitely take it forward. Already I can see comments in the chat box appreciating your work, and all of them are saying that we need more young warriors. So how to create more young warriors, that is what we should be looking at now. So now I would invite anybody who wants to say something or ask a question, please unmute yourselves and go ahead.
Usha, I'd like to ask something.
Yeah, please tell your name and then you can go ahead.
Okay, this is Maithili from Delhi, and I want to ask Kalpana, what do you think about this vertical gardening? There's a fad now. Every flyover, every wall, they're having vertical gardens, plants growing. Do you think it's a good idea, or will it increase pollution?
I think it will help decrease pollution, because increasing pollution, I don't see a reason why it will increase pollution. Because you see a lot of greenery, and the water that's being used is through drip irrigation. So you're using water sensibly, and you're greening up an area where huge amount of dust happens on the roads with these large vehicles. So it will capture, it acts like a barrier, it takes on all these things, right? Otherwise it will be breathing it. So I think vertical gardens is good, but only sad thing is the people don't maintain it. See, when you don't maintain it, it's not doing its job, and then it's sitting there collecting pollution. Then it becomes dirty, and all these dried twigs and that, then birds, and people start throwing garbage, and it becomes, maintaining it. That is one thing the government really should focus on. They put up toilets, they put up this, they put up that. But what about maintenance of these infrastructures? Because like I said, even for the lake, I started working on communities who will handhold this lake. I didn't go and jump and start working on the lake first. I first worked on communities who will handhold. Of course, I was disappointed, but initially no one came. But today, I am very proudly, I can say 10,000 people around the lake will handhold me for whatever I'm doing at the lake. They are so proud of the work that I do. They go and speak to others. But initially, how did it start? Zero, alignment. So it is just that how resilient you are, how you are able to stand. There are many days I have cried. I have gone back and cried. I do so much good work. There's no appreciation. Forget about appreciation. They're questioning me. Now, I was even questioned, how is your family allowing you so many hours of work? And I dedicated, even Usha will know, but I am very dedicated to my family. We had like 4 parents with us, 12 years. And I did my home office. Right now, I'm speaking out of my home office because I am a very successful designer. I have won national awards too. But I didn't think I have to go out and do this. My home office is good enough. And I have at any point good amount of projects. And I'm available for people at home all the time, for my kids. I do my duties diligently, but I took upon a lot of things which I'm doing for the society. But I started going wider in this game after my children are on their own now. They have graduated. My daughter has just got married. It's just about 2 years now. Then my son, he is doing his own startup. Once they have spread their wings, now I think, okay, now I just turned 50 last year. But 50, I started this rainwater project, a social enterprise. I dared to start it because I think there is no age. It's all in the mind, what you want to do, how you want to do it. It's not even about young or old. It is about the intent. So, yeah, I think so. The pollution, it works as a pollution barrier, the vertical gardens. But if it works well, it works beautifully. Implementation, maintenance is the issue there.
Thank you, Kalpana. Best wishes are with you.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please
Usha ji?
announce your name.
Okay.
And
What I wanted to know was this rainwater harvesting. Even in independent houses, whenever we are here new to this place, we have always been staying outside. So when we got the independent house and I wanted to do the rainwater harvesting, but everybody over here around was saying that there's no need for that because the water, you have a well and the water goes down in the ground, it reaches the well through the mud and soil, it is filtered and goes. So is it correct, or is it a correct statement, or do we need to, is it?
So when you say a well, your well is in your property.
Yeah,
You
that's
have
right.
a well.
Yeah.
Well, if you can simply connect your rooftop water to the well and it will recharge groundwater. But what you can also do is you can use these inline filters in the pipes that come down. You can use these inline filters. It's available on Amazon. Any plumber can do it. You can use these inline filters and take that water into your sump. You already will have a sump, right?
Yeah.
So whenever it rains, it can go into your sump. Overflow water, you connect it to the well. So you will be reusing in your sump. All you need to do is fit a inline filter and do the plumbing right to the sump. And every time, so those days you don't need any other water. You don't need you switch on your bore at all. And believe me, 2 months of rainwater, even if you bathe in it, you do anything with it, you are going to be so much healthier. And I can vouch for this. We've had parents who are like in the 75 and 80s. We've drunk rainwater. We, take bath in rainwater, and even rainwater in your washing machine gives your clothes 10% cleaner. Your rice cooks very fast. I mean, you can test try all these things.
Okay.
See, when you go walk out in the rain, you feel very refreshed, right? So taking a shower in the rain is very refreshing. You can stand in the shower for hours together in the other water. You don't feel refreshed like rainwater. So
Okay.
I feel it's also health. You restore this water.
Okay.
Simply the overflow, you connect it to your well. That's a very nice thing. Or if you don't want to store, you simply put the pipe directly into the well. It will recharge your groundwater because it will be connected to the shallow aquifers.
Thank you so much.
No need to do any other. Harvesting means either you store or you recharge. One of the two you can do, or you can do both. And it's a great thing that you have a well. In Bangalore, those days, every house had a well. Nowadays, you hardly find any wells. Everything is closed upon. Wells
In
are
Kerala,
actually
we have most of the houses.
wells are actually the lifelines. You should never close a well. You should, protect it and save it for generations. Yeah.
And another point, I'm sorry, I'm asking another thing. Like, is there any stipulation? I believe that for industrial, big buildings and all that, which are built, there is this rain harvesting is a must to be done. Is there a stipulation, and do people follow it? Or is there any law or something like that?
So in Telangana, there is this law that beyond 200 square yards plot, you need to have rainwater harvesting, and you will get a no objection certificate for construction only if you did a rainwater harvesting. But what is happening is, so such rules will be there in every state for a single unit, or if it is a larger unit, especially in manufacturing when they use water, 3 times that water they are supposed to put back into the ground. They have to do it. That's a compliance.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, compliances are there, but who will implement these compliances is a fallback. People also in homes, they do some eyewash rainwater harvesting pit, and then they show the government and just to take approvals. But if they realize little bit more, if they think, actually that rainwater harvesting pit is a savior to them. Right? It is not just eyewash. It is going to save them. If you have your goal like every drop of your community or your home, you will save within the community. Just imagine you will not see this urban flood on the roads. What if everybody did that? You will not see these rainwater that goes on and what happens on the roads? It combines with sewage. And when it combines with sewage, it goes all over the city and it's so much pathogens on the road. Again, unhealthy conditions. We are creating unhealthy conditions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm really encouraged, and thank you so much. It's really nice.
Very interesting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Kalpana, I'm feeling so proud of you,
Thank you.
listening to you and the amount of work that you have been doing.
Thank you.
And I would say the vision with which you have actually carried doorstep accumulation of rainwater to something that has gone up to cleaning wells and even lakes. To add to what you have said, particularly about Telangana, there is a law in Chennai as well, which enforces that rainwater should be harvested if any building is built within a particular dimension. So rain harvesting has become almost compulsory in Chennai. In Kerala, it has not come into effect so much. And from what you have been saying, like we all depend on government to clean up lakes and polluted rivers for us, and even to get water to us from those lakes. There is hardly anyone trying to do something that with the kind of driving force that you have to implement various projects that you are doing in Hyderabad. While you have been doing this, have you been able to find a tie-up with similar-minded people in Kerala or in any of the other states? And how are you going to broaden your sphere of work from just one particular state to perhaps, say, South India or the rest of the country?
Sure.
Do you
So,
have any plans to do that?
Yes, my vision is always, I mean, once I achieve something, again, I revision myself and take it. So my thing about blue Hyderabad, right? I want to make it a blue Mumbai or a blue Ernakulam or a blue Delhi, that's the aim. So where every city can break down into smaller parts and you can do collective local action for water and pull up. So once I create this replicable model now, which is happening right now, we can take this model to every city, right? Even if we don't achieve 100%, let's say we achieved 40% in each block, it's good enough. It's a large impact because each one of our cities is crores of population, right? Like if you put all the cities together, like Hyderabad is touched 1.2 crore population. Even if 20 lakh people do something, we make a change, right? So it is, we don't even have to cover the entire block, but even if you achieve 30%, 40%, it's a big achievement for the city. And I think this block model, this local action model is very easy to implement. Like, you can take up a street and whatever, apartments there, you can talk to each other. Each one of you do rainwater harvesting. Or if there is a well, or if there is a park, come get together and do rainwater harvesting in that. Get money from the locals and do it. See, often we think there is no fund for this, there's no fund for this, but there is funds. Many apartments, they tell me there is no money, ma'am, we will do it next year. But how come you have money for Ganesh Chaturthi and generate few lakhs? So the intent is the problem, priority is the problem. So once you make environment your priority, once you make water your priority, there is money. It is not that we don't have. So all of us, for a lake, if you put 50 rupees, all the communities around the lake, 50 rupees a month, can't we give for the environment? If all put 50 rupees around the lake, you can generate a few lakhs and you can do a lot of things for the lake. So that's all it takes. So, but
No, once you get onto the national arena, because you have now won national recognition, I was wondering, if you can actually implement, I would say, a big project where you have a wide vision of how you can identify number of cities. Like Kochi is one of the most polluted cities in Kerala now. So if you can identify cities like that and start on a big mission like that, it would be wonderful. And I know with your driving force, you can do it. I feel very proud of you, my girl.
Thank you so much. And I wish I get there soon, and I wish I can do that, because it's only people, right? I feel we don't have power, we don't have that kind of money, but definitely we have the numbers, right? If we collect these people, we have so many. Population is our strength, our weakness also, but right now that is our strength. If we collect like 400 people for a lake, Can we not make a change? And I feel women, more and more women should come, because right now, when I talk about the lake, when I go to step wells, when I talk to masjids, I'm only talking to men, right? Because somehow they have become the decision makers. I don't blame them. Many women also don't take part. But somehow that is what is still going on in the society. I think when women take up small things, right? Of course, we can take up in our own church. We can take up rainwater harvesting in our own temple or in our own mosque. We can enable, right? We can make a small group, make people to donate and do rainwater harvesting or improve groundwater. It is it is an intent, right? And I think that intent should become stronger for us, because I feel we cannot leave a bad future for our children. We cannot erase everything and give them nothing. We have to give them something back good before we die. Everyone is going to die. Nobody is there forever. But before we die, I think we are entitled to do something for our children, and it is a must. I think it should become, like I said, in COVID, everyone helped, right? Somebody or the other. So why can't we do the same thing for the environment? Environment has no voice, but I think we should become the voice and we should do. Yeah.
Wish you good luck in all your future enterprises.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Very encouraging. Any more questions I can take?
Yes, but
Hello, Usha ji.
yeah, please come in.
This is Padma here, Usha ji. First of all, congratulations for organizing this wonderful webinar. The speaker is really amazing. She has proved what Gandhiji said, be the change what you want to see in the world. There's one more request to the speaker, that she should start a training center and train many more water warriors like her. This is what our nation needs. I think many ladies want to do something, but they don't know how to start it, how to go about it. That will be a great contribution to the nation. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you. I take that suggestion and I will work towards it. So what I'm doing is, in the city also, there are citizen groups who are working for lakes. Like today morning, I spent some time at a lake where a few families, they want to work on this lake, but they don't have a roadmap. So I'm trying to give them a roadmap so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm giving them what are the steps to take, what to do next. So,
Kalpana, this is Chandraprabha from New Delhi. Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so you were talking a lot about rooftops. I have a rooftop. I live in an independent house. What can I do with that rooftop? Because there is already a tank, where we fill water for our daily use when the water, fresh water is not coming. So what would you suggest that I can do? Because in Delhi, doing things is very difficult.
I know. So in your rooftop is how many square feet? Do you have an idea?
Beg your pardon?
How many square foot is your rooftop? Is it like 1,000 square feet, or it is lesser than that, or what is the size of your rooftop?
A little less than that. It is a 275 square yard house actually, and the whole rooftop is totally empty.
Yeah, so what you can do is I'm sure you have at least 1,500 square feet of rooftop in your house. I'm sure of that. So in that, you can save at least 80 to 90,000 liters yearly with the rainfall. Delhi receives a little, better rainfall, so you will be able to save water. You have these down pipes, right, which comes from the rooftop. Right now, where is that water going?
It goes to a nala in front of my house, everybody, all houses.
So instead of sending it to the nala, what you can do is, on top where the water enters this pipe, put a small steel jali so that the big leaves and these particles don't go. And in the pipe, they sell this something called inline filters. Right? You can go on Amazon and buy them. use these inline filters. Inline filter is nothing but a centrifugal system. It just arrests the silt and clean water comes out of it. And there is a first flush, means first rains, you can send it out. From second rain onwards, you can close it and you can connect it to your sump directly. You will have a sump, right? Underground sump. Connect it to your sump. Overflow from the sump. When you connect rainwater to a sump, you should always have an overflow. Overflow of that sump. Do a small rainwater harvesting pit. Do like if you don't want to build a major pit, you know the cement rings you get. With cement rings, you can probably do 6 feet deep and a 3 feet or 4 feet wide diameter. You do like a well and put this pipe in that and then close it with a slab. So you can walk on it and you can reuse that space. So every time it rains, it will store water in your sump. Overflow will go to your recharge. Do you have a bore well also?
No, we don't have a borewell. Borewells are not allowed in Delhi.
So you might have already what in your colony you might have, right?
No, actually, there is the system is that there is a place from where in a tank the water is stored and it is distributed in the entire colony.
Okay. They probably have a overhead system, but
Don't
where
you
it
come
is.
to Delhi? Kalpana, come to Delhi.
I will.
Help all of us. I would love to.
You know what? I was in fact working with someone. I was asking them, like we did Blue Hyderabad. We are going to do a Blue Hyderabad run, and we are. You know how I've organized the run. The runners will go to these restoration projects. They will actually see what is happening. Okay, and that will be the run. You know, it will be awareness as well as what has happened with all these water bodies and how we have restored them. So it brings a lot of awareness and wanting to do these things, right? How you can make the change. So these projects, runs, we want to do in several cities. So we can pick up Delhi also and do this run. We'll see. I'm working with a few people. Let us see what can happen. Because that
whenever you are in Delhi, when you are in Delhi, let me also know. You know, I'll give Usha my number, and I would like to do something in my independent house because there is a service lane where probably I can take the rooftop water, but I don't know how to do it actually.
So there may be people who do like rainwater harvesting, I'm sure in Delhi also. You might find people who do, but what you need is you can store and you can recharge. You can do both instead of sending the water to the Nala. It's about 80,000 to 90,000 liters which falls on your terrace. And if you send it to the Nala, even if you put 1 rupee to a liter, it's like throwing 80,000 rupees every year into the Nala.
Nala water doesn't go anywhere. I don't think it goes anywhere.
Yeah. Nala is basically just combines with sewage and that's it, right? If you have a pure strong water, you can lead it to a pit and you can make it go into the ground as well. But the community has to plan that. See, either you do it in your own homes, either you do single units or collectively as a community where all their stormwater drains are coming, take it to a certain point and do a recharge.
That is more difficult. Doing it on my own is easier for me.
See, yeah, you should do it because you will benefit. Directly you can use it in your sump, and that many days you will have clean water. You can use this water, and believe me, your health will stay better.
Thank you, Kalpana. Thank you.
Sure. And anytime any of you all want, if there is a group of women or if you have some 30-50 people and you can create a Zoom link, you can connect with me and I can talk to people. At least the awareness we can create.
Yeah, we'll definitely try.
Let me see.
We'll have some sessions with you. I'll people who are interested, they can send their names to me and we can have a Zoom session and then probably you can clear their doubts and give them your opinion. We'll definitely try to do that with your help.
Sure. Yeah.
So are there any more questions? If if there are no more questions, then I would request Padmini Nair of AWC Trivandrum main branch to give the vote of thanks.
Usha Gekamo.
Yes, please go on.
Hello, Kalpanaji. It was really an informative talk, It's so much interesting about water conservation, protection, and restoration. Your real nature, love for nature, it's passionate love for nature made all this possible. And, it was really an interesting and informative talk. And we learned a lot from your talk. And it is not only tanker-free home, it is a tanker-free society you created. It is, we are again, I'm still want to know more about your work and all that. And on behalf of AWC Trivandrum branch, I thank you very much and all the participants who took part in this webinar. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Usha.
Thank you. Thank you, Usha, for the opportunity and remembering.
Thank you so much, Kalpana. I know you are very busy and you have spared so much time to talk to us. And we'll definitely be in touch with you and we'll take more help from you. And actually, personally, it has been a delight to get back with you after all these years and talk to you. And I thank all other members who joined from various places, and we had some non-members also. I thank all of you. And I would like to just inform all of you that this talk was on the occasion of Water Day. And we are hoping to have one more talk on water by Sri Rajendra Singh, who is very well known for his water conservation efforts, and he has won several awards, including Maxey Award. So we are hoping to have him with us on 10th of April, and I will be sending out the link to all of you. So thank you. Thanks to Kalpana and to each and every one of you. We'll end the session here now. Thank you, Kalpana, again.
Thank you, Usha. Thank you all for all your